praise be upon the one and only God by all without exception eternally, the God of the tree of life, of the Kabbalah and of the Trinity, whose unity is one. Amen. The COVID-19 conspiracy. It is more correct to describe this as not a conspiracy but rather as fact, or more correctly a post-truth fact. As much as the authorities, primarily of Western and westernized nations, would have you accept and believe that this situation was nothing more than a random occurrence, it definitely was not. In Australia, its component states had a practice run before the implementation of lockdown laws, which was nothing more than a curfew enforced by the police departments of the various states. The various state police have taken it upon themselves to give themselves powers that have only attempted to be implemented by the military and the Domestic Intelligence Service ASIO. Especially in the state of New South Wales, where the police have targeted the unemployed, the homeless and other people of lower social and economic status. This has less and less to do with physical viruses and diseases, but is more and more to do with one's place in society, and if their status is not complementary to the state, then their replacement. This is a tactic of dictatorships in that they will create a problem for the general public to hate, and in this case the government is pushing the idea that the homeless, the unemployed and those in the lower socio-economic realm are causing the spread of COVID-19, despite the fact that it is the upper socio-economic realm that has been the most impacted with both infection and spreading of COVID-19. It is the government's action of imposing lockdown laws that has led to people becoming homeless and unemployed due to businesses not being allowed to open or operate. In Australia, we have been told that there will be a second wave of COVID-19. However, the second wave is said to include symptoms and effects relating to mental illness. And in New South Wales the practice run has commenced. In fact, it never stopped since March, as the police accost random civilians and accuse them of being mentally ill. One particular disturbing tactic they use is to approach someone, stare into their eyes while theirs are fully opened, speak to the person they accosted in a slow, drawn-out manner and tell that person they have a mental illness unbeknown to themselves. It is essentially a type of hypnotism, and despite how stupid it comes across as, it is still being implemented. It is a shock and awe type of tactic. People who are perfectly sane and indeed innocent of any crime are simply targeted because they do not look rich or else are simply walking down the street by themselves when they are ambushed by police. However, this tactic may work because people may be in a state of shock when first approached and accused of a crime or accused of being mentally ill, and may give confused answers to their on-the-street interrogation because they are answering questions under duress. The New South Wales police will seek every bit of information from random people and will seek to find out how far they can go, whether it is legal or illegal. This is because the New South Wales police have granted themselves a level of autonomy so great it can be said it is its own government. The Premier of New South Wales, Gladys Berejiklian, has either delegated the police this autonomy or else has had it taken from her. The New South Wales Police now make up laws according to their feelings, and the police commissioner recently awarded himself a $90,000 prize. The New South Wales Police have low standards today, and the bulk of constables in the lower-class suburbs of Sydney are aged 20 to 25. If they are male, they will be 6'6" rock apes, and if they are female, they will be 5 foot tall. No one respects them, but to display that will get you into a constant state of lawfare where you are continually having to fight court cases until you are bankrupt and your life destroyed. Essentially, the New South Wales Police have become the Khmer Rouge, the lawless gang of young people serving the name of the Premier, who is a self-indulgent spoiled princess. But what is the motivation of those who serve the COVID-19 agenda? In the case of the police, it is gaining the feeling of personal power by enforcing laws of various states of legality upon people while being immune to these laws themselves. With the Premier, it is about portraying a positive image in the media while making noteworthy news a lesser or even non-existent priority. With health professionals, it is portraying themselves as saviors. But these groupings of people have become fantastically rich while everyone else has had their lifestyle reduced. What we are seeing is a division of the population into two groups, the haves and the have-nots. The first target of the lockdown laws in New South Wales was the churches and other religious institutions, and while the likes of bars and restaurants which served alcohol have gained some reprieve from the lockdown laws, the likes of churches, mosques, Hindu and Buddhist temples and synagogues have not. The police have shown an especial hatred for religion and especially the Christian faith. And yet throughout all this time the likes of take-away alcohol shops have been allowed to function without restriction. From this we have seen the rise of domestic violence, which has now been reclassified as a result of COVID-19, that being COVID-19 related mental illness. The state government enforced self-exclusion laws upon the population. It was legally enforced isolation, much like you would find as a method of punishment within a prison. But in prison, for this to occur, you would have to break an established rule or law. In New South Wales, the police officer only has to feel that they suspected you of violating a law that may or may not be legally binding. In other words, I do not like the look of you, so you are going to jail. If you think that this is just one officer with bad judgment, I will add this story. One man was arrested in a park on the New South Wales Central Coast for eating a kebab and nothing else. I myself have been accosted by police and accused of being a mental patient, of being a missing person, of being on bail, on parole, of just being released from prison, and of escaping from a psychiatric unit. I have encountered many people who have had the same experience. The degree of bad will enforced by the New South Wales police has become so large and so problematic that it is easier for them to claim that the population of New South Wales is mentally ill than admit that they themselves are the cause of this situation. The police force in New South Wales is establishing a database on civilians that runs parallel to the workings of ASIO and indeed exceeds it. One method is having the likes of the Premier get on TV and continually ask for people to get tested for COVID-19. The question to be asked is what happens to the test results. In New South Wales and indeed throughout the world, the test that is used is the same for obtaining DNA from suspects for rape cases and for paternity lawsuits. But the swabs used for the tests are not destroyed but taken into possession by the police to add to their database. But it is not only the states who are implementing the police state. The federal government has created an app to be used on the iPhone to alert the holder of the phone to those who have COVID-19. This app will relay information as to your location to the government 24 hours a day, much as your SIM card does. You have to remember that turning off your cell phone does not make you unlocatable, because at your SIM card that cell phone towers beam waves to and get bounced back with your SIM card number. I believe the COVID-19 app is in fact spyware that has been in the planning before the so-called COVID-19 situation came into being. This can be said to be a legitimate concern, as it has coincided with the 5G cell phone network coming into being. You may ask if this COVID-19 situation is being implemented consistently on a global level. No. It is the Western and westernized nations that are the primary target. The reason being, if they fall, then the rest of the world will fall by default. This was the same plan that was the basis of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. If the European nations fell, then by default their colonies would be taken too. In the case of today, if the nations that are deemed rich fall, then by default the nations that are in debt to them will fall also. But who would get the power over such a situation? The answer is the United Nations, and what people have to understand is that the World Health Organization is a part of the United Nations, and in this COVID-19 situation they have been the shock troops of a plan for global government. In Australia, in relation to media conferences by the Chief Medical Officer Brendan Murphy, you will see that the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison always takes a subservient role to Brendan Murphy. The fact is that Brendan Murphy is first and foremost a loyal servant to the World Health Organization, who just happens to be the Chief Medical Officer for Australia.